because of a stomachache. I entered the hospital. As soon as I sat down in the consulting room, the doctor lifted the corner of my clothes. I slapped his hand away. "What are you doing? Why do you lift the corner of my clothes?" The male doctor opposite said casually, "Just because I'm your husband." The continuous overtime work in recent days finally defeated me. I asked for leave from my leader and hurried to the hospital to register for the emergency department. As soon as I entered the consulting room, I met a rather handsome male doctor and couldn't help but take a few more glances. However, I felt that this doctor looked a bit familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had seen him. As a result, he directly asked me to lie down and said that he was going to do an examination. All right. Lie down then. After all, he is a doctor. Who would have thought that after he put on his gloves and walked towards me, he asked me to take off my clothes as soon as he opened his mouth. As a woman who has reached the age of 28 without ever holding hands with a boy, isn't this a bit too exciting? Although I knew it was for symptomatic treatment, I still couldn't help but be shy. So, I righteously refused him, and also casually complained to him, "Why take off my clothes? Can't you do the examination with my clothes on?" But he seemed to have expected that I would say this and said casually, "Just because I'm your husband." What? The man squinted his eyes to observe my reaction, seeming to be sure that I had completely forgotten about this. His face became a bit colder. "It seems that Madame has even forgotten that she is already married." The man's deep and ascetic face was right above me, looking down at me at this moment. He gave me a lot of pressure. Only then did I suddenly remember. Isn't this man my husband in name only, whom I got the marriage certificate with just last month? It's not easy to be single until the age of 28. First of all, one has to develop the ability to resist being urged to get married every month. At the beginning, there was only my mother in the urge to marry Army. Occasionally, when she urged urgently, my father would say a few good words for me beside her. The child is grown up and has her own ideas. It's okay not to get married. After all, we can afford to support her. As time passed, my father couldn't sit still either. My mother urged me openly, and he urged me in various ways. Either he answered yes to the 7 Kalabish brothers who called him grandpa, or he hugged other people's children downstairs to stimulate me. Seeing that they still couldn't urge me, well, all my aunts and uncles in the family were mobilized. Basically, blind dates were like an assembly line. 1 per month, scheduled from morning till night. Even the cows in the production team wouldn't be used like this. I work in a research institute and am very busy at work on weekdays. Occasionally, I have to go on blind dates during my holidays, which annoys me very much. Finally, during another blind date, I completely exploded. I caught a passerby who looked quite pleasing to the eye and planned to act first and report later. And this handsome guy was exactly the man in front of me, staring at me with dissatisfaction. What was his name? Oh, right. When we got the marriage certificate, I glanced at it. His name was Jack. It's a rather nice name. On that day, after getting the certificate and leaving each other's contact information, we went our separate ways and never contacted each other again. Unexpectedly, he was a doctor, and I became his patient. Remembered? Can you take off your clothes now? Jack didn't seem to intend to let me go and was still persistent in asking me to take off my clothes. The situation was stronger than people, so I endured it. Because of shyness, I slightly averted my gaze and closed my eyes, and then pulled up my clothes a little, revealing my abdomen. The cold touch pressed on my stomach. With a little force, I cried out in pain. "Ah! It hurts. Be gentler." I secretly opened my eyes a little to look at Jack. I don't know if it was an illusion, but I felt that his ears were very red. Moreover, from my angle, I could just see his complete profile. It made me immediately think of a sentence. The young man on the road is as beautiful as jade, and the young master is unrivaled in the world. It's probably not an exaggeration to use it to describe Jack. Perhaps my gaze was too straightforward. Jack withdrew his hand and looked at me. All right. It's acute appendicitis and needs an operation. By the way, you don't need to cry out so. As if you're facing death. Because it was an emergency. There were a lot of people queuing outside. When I came in, I didn't close the door. When doing the examination, I also pulled the curtain up to block the sight of people outside. After Jack said that sentence, I clearly heard someone outside chuckle. Great. Directly socially dead. I glared at Jack angrily. But Jack turned a deaf ear and sat back at the consulting desk, without any hesitation, and began to write the medical record quickly. While typing, he asked, "Are you going to do it?" My thoughts had wandered too far. So when I first heard this sentence, I didn't react for a while. I'm sorry. I admit that my thoughts were in the gutter. Looking at my face, Jack seemed to realize what I was thinking and unnaturally looked away. I'm asking you if you want to have the operation? He repeated it again. And when I realized that my thoughts were in the gutter, my toes were already involuntarily digging out. A 3-bedroom and 1 living room apartment. Jack is probably my nemesis. My IQ is seriously offline today. Seeing that I didn't speak, Jack sighed, leaned closer to me and comforted me in a voice that others couldn't hear. When you get better. It's not impossible either. Not impossible either? What is possible? My mind quickly turned a circle. And then I belatedly realized that what Jack said was that doing it was not impossible either. Good heavens. What are these fierce and unrestrained words? I'm just here to see a doctor. During the inquiry, Jack had already written out the hospitalization form and stuffed it into my hand. Go directly to the inpatient department on the 5th floor to go through the hospital or to go through the hospitalization procedures. I will pay the fees. I've called a caregiver for you. I will come to see you when I'm free. By the way, the operation is scheduled for early tomorrow morning. Use anti-inflammatory drugs to relieve the pain today. Be good. Be obedient. I was stunned by this last sentence. Besides my father, no one had ever called me like this. Until I walked out of the consulting room, my head was still in a daze. Is Jack coaxing a child? However, as soon as I finished going through the hospitalization procedures, my mother's call came. I calmed myself down and answered it. You damn girl. You've already got the marriage certificate. But your father and I haven't seen the person yet. Bring him back quickly. Or we will pretend that we don't have you as a daughter. I was just about to speak, when my stomach started to hurt again. All that came out of my mouth were groans. And even I felt my scalp tingle when I heard them. Suddenly, the person on the other end of the phone became silent. After a while, I just managed to say, "Mom. Listen to me explain." The other side quickly hung up the phone. And a busy signal of beep beep came through. It's all over. Won't my mom think I'm doing something shameful? Sure enough. Soon after, the love-loving family group exploded. The culprit was, without a doubt, my mom. I endured the pain and scrolled through the chat history. Mom, folks. Great news. I'm going to be a grandma. Sprinkling flower emoji IS emoji. Dad, my dear baby is so quick and decisive. Just got the marriage license and is having a baby already. Heart emoji IS emoji and ungles. Congratulations. Have the wedding banquet and the baby's full moon celebration together. Double happiness. The younger generation in the family. Learn from sister. Once you're off the singles list, have a baby. Go for it emoji. Me. Stop. How come I don't know that I'm having a baby? Horrified emoji. Mom. At this critical moment. What are you looking at your phone for? Go and have the baby. Disgusted emoji. Looking at the phone prompt. You have been removed from the group chat. I was in despair. As a net-addicted girl in the new era, I immediately posted on my WeChat moments. In this situation, wouldn't it be impolite if I don't actually have a baby? Waiting online. Urgent. A nurse gave me an injection for pain relief and anti-inflammation. I felt less uncomfortable. So I lay there and scrolled through my phone, looking at the screenshot of the post I just made on WeChat Moments. There were all kinds of comments below. And I laughed uncontrollably. The pain is gone? Laughing like this. A deep voice sounded beside me. I turned my neck to look in the direction of the voice. It was Jack, who had come. The very person who was rumored to have a baby with me had arrived. How could I still dare to lie down? I struggled to sit up. Jack quickly reached out his hand to hold me down, signaling me to just lie down. As ill luck would have it, his well-defined hand happened to press on my body and was quickly withdrawn by him. Looking at his face, flushed from holding back laughter, I deeply suspected that he did it on purpose. Sure enough, under the pretext of a physical examination, he pulled the curtain around the bed, suddenly leaned close to me and whispered, "If you want to have a baby, it's not impossible." The smell of disinfectants preyed on my face, making a tingle run up my spine. Being too close to him, Jack's amber-colored eyes stared at me, making me uncomfortably avert my eyes and mutter in a low voice, "Ach, have it then." His beauty was alluring, but I couldn't lose my momentum. Then, I felt a chill on my body as my patient gown was lifted by him. I was horrified and slapped his hand away hard, with a rather loud smack. But I couldn't care about that anymore. I covered my clothes in a fluster and huddled at the head of the bed, scolding him in exasperation. I didn't say I was going to have a baby in the hospital. Dr. Zhang, be aware of your influence. Jack rubbed his red-slapped hand, and stood up straight with a sigh. I didn't expect you to be so obsessed with having a baby with me. I didn't react for a moment and blinked at him. He seemed to not expect me to be so slow-witted in this regard. He half coaxed and half forced me to lie down again. Be good. I'm just doing an examination. Thump thump thump. Blood rushed to my head. I quickly pulled the quilt over my head. It was only when I heard Jack's easing laugh and the sound of his leaving footsteps that I pulled the quilt down to take a breath. Then, belatedly, I realized. Was I just teased? Just as I was gnashing my teeth in anger, the nurse came over with the doctor's orders. Bed 36. Sonny? It's me. Sonny. Keep your stomach empty tonight. You're the first for surgery tomorrow morning. So soon? I asked the nurse a bit nervously. Miss, will this surgery leave a scar? The nurse looked at me with a smile in her eyes and said, Don't worry. Dr. Jiang's skills are first class. Doc Drive. Zhang? Is it Drive? Zhang Jack? Seeming strange that I would ask this, a nurse gave me a puzzled look, adjusted the speed of the infusion bag before answering me. Yes. Which other Drive? Zhang could it be? Don't worry. Although Drive. Zhang is young. His skills are very good. After saying that, she left, leaving me stunned in place. Miss, it's not that I think his skills are bad. I'm worried that I'll have to take off my clothes during the surgery. Won't it be so embarrassing? Thinking of this, I couldn't help but shiver. A woman's sixth sense is always so accurate. As soon as I lay down in the operating room, I felt a chill on my stomach and then lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was already back in the ward. Jack was standing by the bed, looking through my medical records. Seeing that I was awake, he asked considerately, Do you feel any discomfort anywhere? I shook my head. But in my heart I thought, with you here watching me, I'm uncomfortable. Jack nodded and closed the medical record book. I thought he was going to leave. However, he raised an eyebrow as he looked at me, and I immediately felt something was wrong. By the way, while you were asleep just now, your phone rang. I answered it for you. I nodded and said thank you hoarsely. Who called? Our mom. She said that when you recover, she wants me to take you. Oh no. Wants you to take me home to meet the parents. Look at this. His face is as thick as a city wall. We haven't even met. And he's already calling them parents. I couldn't help but raise a finger to point at him, wanting to scold him for being shameless. taking advantage of my illness to break into my life. As a result, my finger was wrapped by his warm palm. And then he said tenderly to me, "Don't be excited. There are 3 stitches in your wound." A lump of anger stuck in my chest. And I was defeated on the spot. I was discharged from the hospital after 2 days. Before leaving the hospital, Jack told me to come back for a follow-up visit in a week. At this moment, I was half reclining on the sofa, munching on melon seeds while watching a variety show, and having a hands-free phone call with my best friend, Sally. Jack is my nemesis. Whenever I see him, I'm out of luck. Sally's gossipy voice came from the phone. "Sonny, having such a handsome guy as your husband. You've made a great deal. Ugh. Speaking of this, I have to admit that Jack is really my type." During the 2 days I was in the hospital, I saw more than once that there were young girls trying to strike up a conversation with him on some pretext. But he turned them all down one by one. Even more speechless was that a little nurse actually came to ask me to pass a message to Jack. The reason was, "Drop dive. Jong values your." As her eyes fell on my stomach, I automatically added 2 words. "Appendix." Men. Recalling my thoughts, I spat and said, "I'm such a beauty. He's the lucky one to have me." Yes. Yes. Our Sonny has milky white skin, long legs, alluring eyes and sexy lips. And those slightly curly hair are so charming. That brat is really getting a bargain. Just then, my takeout arrived. I opened the door to get it. I was coaxed by my best friend into a big smile. And I didn't even have time to retract my expression. Who would have thought that there was no delivery man outside the door? But only Jack. The jinx. Then I heard my best friend's cheering voice coming from the phone, with her key sinking to her D. Auntie Anne. Milky white skin, long legs, alluring eyes, sexy lips. Sonny. Go for Jack. Zap. It seemed as if an electric current rushed to the top of my head. As if possessed, I slammed the door shut and then, with trembling hands, hung up on my best friend. After counting to 3, to calm down, I started to build up my self-confidence crazily in my heart. An illusion. It must have been an illusion just now. Yes. How could Jack come to my house? Since Jack wouldn't come to my house, I must have been mistaken. Since I was mistaken. Sonny. What are you panicking for? Yes. I'm not panicking. Then, I adjusted my expression, opened the door again, showed what I thought was a sweet and proper smile. And when I saw that it was indeed Jack standing at the door, my face fell. It's really not my fault for making a fuss. It's just that Jack today was a little different. Hi, Dr. Ive. Jong. You're out of your white coat. I didn't recognize you just now. I'm sorry. Today he was dressed casually, in a white t-shirt and a pair of jeans. Looking youthful, handsome and full of hormones. Jack chuckled. And his fair face instantly blushed. His pair of fox-like eyes suddenly became rippling and vivid, as if they were going to make me addicted to them. He raised his left arm and propped it on the door frame. Getting closer to me, a faint mint smell sprayed on my face, stimulating my nasal cavity. I heard him say, "Do you want to see me take off my clothes?" His voice was cold and noble, very pleasant to the ear. I collected my thoughts and realized that I had said something wrong. Just as I was about to explain, Jack stopped me. But I thought there was still a chance to save the situation, and wanted to redeem my image. Dr. Jong. Listen to me. You don't need to say anything. I understand everything. What do you understand? Jack raised the medical kit in his hand calmly, as if nothing had happened just now. Sonny. I'm here for a post-operative examination. Aren't you going to invite me in? The topic changed so quickly that while I was in a daze, he took a long stride and really entered the house this time. Jack stood at the entrance and looked around, then slowly carried the medical kit into my bedroom. I followed closely behind, a little puzzled, not noticing at all where he was going. How do you know I live here? I followed Jack's steps into the bedroom step by step. He casually turned on the light, and the warm-toned light poured down, making his face look more delicate and cold. Mom told me. While talking, Jack sat on the low stool beside the bed, opened the medical kit, and took out the tools, motioning for me to lie down. I hesitated for about 5, 6, 7 or 8 seconds, and finally chose to compromise. I even took the initiative to lift my clothes. After all, he was here to help me with the examination. It would be too affected if I made a fuss. The cold touch moved around my abdomen. I have a problem. When I'm extremely nervous, I'll keep talking. Like now. Jack. Is my wound healing well? Quite well. Jack. Be gentle. It hurts. Ah. Jack. Where are your hands touching? I'm checking how the absorption is. Jack. Be quick. Stop it. Shut up. Amid my chatter, Jack finally withdrew his hand. But his forehead veins were throbbing violently. Just as I was about to get up, whining and about to cry about him scolding me, there was a sound of something falling outside the room. Jack and I looked at each other and saw solemnity in each other's eyes. Could there be a thief in the house? Jack told me not to move and he went out to have a look. But I waited and waited. But he didn't come back. Unable to bear it any longer, I also walked out. I swear that at the moment I walked out, I had thought of 100 ways to die. There was no other reason. My mother, my father and Jack were sitting neatly on the sofa, looking at me and smiling peacefully. Mom, let me explain. I rushed to my mother in a few steps, pushed aside Jack, who was sitting there, and grasped my mother's hand tightly. As a result, my mother patted my hand earnestly and educated me. Young people are full of vigor and vitality. We understand. But you should also be temperate. You've just had an operation. Mom. In such a short time. What on earth have you made up in your mind? I was in distress and looked at my father, who usually doted on me the most, hoping that he could help me relieve the pressure. As a result, my father looked at me, gratefully, with red eyes. Sonny, you and Xiaojiang are already married. How can you live separately? Today, I'll make the decision. You move to Xiaojiang's place. See what you lack. Dad will transfer money to you. Buy whatever you like. Xiaojiang, I'll leave Sonny to you from now on. What's going on? I was completely numb. Just as I was frantically thinking about how to explain that Jack and I hadn't reached that stage yet, Jack spoke. Mom and Dad, don't worry. Sonny's place is a bit far from her workplace. I also hope that she can move to my place as soon as possible, but we still need to respect her wishes. After saying that, he looked at me affectionately. Everyone was waiting for my answer, especially my mother. She leaned closer to me and whispered, if you dare to delay giving me a grandson, I'll make you pay. With the help of my parents, I moved into Jack's house that very night. Before my parents left, they also told me earnestly, the muddle-headed Chinese cabbage in our family has finally been given away. We should make a big fuss about it. Me. So in my parents' eyes, I'm just a Chinese cabbage? Jack's house is very large. About more than 140 square meters. But he lives alone. His parents are abroad. The decoration in the house is simple. Only black and white. Jack thoughtfully gave the master bedroom to me, and took the initiative to move to the second bedroom. This made my hanging heart a little more at ease. I really never thought that just because I was hospitalized for an illness, I could have such substantial development with him. However, not long after I moved there, my body completely recovered as well. If you don't look carefully, the scar on my abdomen is almost invisible. Sometimes, I would also jokingly tease Jack. Dr. John has excellent skills. Jack would also reply to me with a smile. Then, little Sonny, do you want to give it a try? Every time, it ended with me being teased so embarrassed that I had to flee back to my room. We tacitly acknowledged our romantic relationship. after the vacation ended. I also threw myself into my busy work. Due to the nature of our jobs, both Jack and I were very busy and rarely had the chance to meet in normal times. However, we still had frequent WeChat exchanges on weekdays, taking advantage of the noon break. I was chatting with Jack and laughing merrily when the head of our department suddenly approached me. "Sonny, you're smiling so lewdly. Are you in love?" I immediately covered the WeChat chat interface on my phone and pretended to be annoyed as I retorted, "Less gossip, more study. Oh, the girl who has been straight-minded for thousands of years has finally become enlightened. Well, don't say that your brother doesn't look out for you. Here are 2 tickets. A great opportunity to get closer. Remember, win him over and vindicate the bachelors in our research institute who have been single for thousands of years." Then, the head slapped 2 entrance tickets onto my desk, gave me a look that said, "You know what I mean," and left. I picked up the entrance tickets and took a look. The Global Artificial Intelligence Integration Research Forum Conference. Instantly, my eyes lit up, and I became as excited as if I had been injected with chicken blood. This forum was indeed a great opportunity for me. An opportunity to broaden my horizons. After all, in the Research Institute, I mainly engaged in this type of project development and research. Immediately, I took a photo and sent it to Jack, wanting to ask him if he was free. But Jack just replied to me with a, "Me, let's go on a date." Jack, you call this a date? Me, how romantic it is. Jack, Sonny, you must have some misunderstanding about romance. Me, are you denying my aesthetics? Jack, no. I just think your idea of romance is a bit astonishing. After I frantically recommended Jack to attend the forum, I successfully persuaded Jack at the cost of accompanying him to see a movie. Unfortunately, I got my wish. But Jack didn't. After the forum conference ended, he led me to the backstage lounge, where my idol Tim was sitting. Tim, a great figure in artificial intelligence, was the person I admired and learned from. Although he was nearly 50 years old this year, he looked energetic. As soon as Jack and I entered the lounge, the staff inside all retreated, leaving only the 3 of us there. Although I was surprised why Jack brought me here, I couldn't care about anything else. I smoothed my hair and was about to step forward to introduce myself. But Jack was faster than me. He walked a few steps to my idol and called out crisply, "Dad." My hand that was smoothing my hair didn't even have time to be put down before I was completely stunned by this dad. Was this dad the one I thought it was? I saw my idol laugh happily a few times and pat Jack on the shoulder. Then he teased, "You brat. Not bad. Is this the daughter-in-law you found for me?" Not bad. Not bad. The questions you raised at the forum just now were very insightful. She's a good prospect. It was really the dad I thought it was. Realizing that my idol was complimenting me, I quickly regained my composure and sweetly called out, "Hello, Uncle." Jack's fox-like eyes glanced at me lightly. And as if inspired, I said, "Sorry, Dad. I'm just not used to it for a moment." Seemingly pleased by my understanding, the father and son laughed, looking happier than each other. However, the look in my idol's eyes when he looked at me was a bit strange. Never would I have thought that just coming out for an academic exchange and study would turn into a large-scale meeting the parents-in-law scene. At this moment, I was sitting in a Western restaurant having dinner with Jack's mother. That is, my mother-in-law, while Jack and my idol were sitting opposite us. My mother-in-law was well-maintained. Her skin was fair and delicate, and she had a pair of affectionate fox-like eyes. She looked like a beauty from the south of the Yangtze River at first sight, and was very approachable. I also felt that she looked somewhat familiar. So Jack's good looks were mostly inherited from his mother. I glanced at him and found that he was secretly looking at me and smiling. When he saw me looking at him, he also kicked me with his toe under the table. Seeing that I ignored him, he kicked me several more times. My damn competitive spirit was aroused by him at this time. I mustered all my strength and kicked back. As a result, Jack let out a strange cry, which startled me. I quickly sat upright and didn't dare to move again. Jack's parents naturally saw everything. It seemed that they were sure that we had a good relationship. Jack's mother took my hand and casually put a bright green jade bracelet on my wrist. It looked very valuable. I quickly declined. Mom, this is too precious. You'd better keep it for yourself. As a result, Jack's mother laughed even more exaggerated, which made me extremely frightened. All I heard was her say, "Sonny, didn't you keep shouting when you were a child that you wanted this bracelet from me?" I said it was for my daughter-in-law. "What did you say then?" Jack's father said with a smile. "You said that when you grew up, you would be the daughter-in-law for us old couple." I didn't say that. You're lying. It was only at this moment that I remembered why Jack's mother looked so familiar and why Jack's father looked at me so strangely. It turned out that Jack's mother was my mother's best friend. I had met her several times when I was a child, and every time we met, I would clamor for the jade bracelet on her hand. If she didn't let me wear it, I would cry and make a fuss, in order to be able to wear this jade bracelet as I wished. When I was a child, I often shouted that I wanted to be her daughter-in-law. Oh my God! What a sin! Seeing my incredulous expression, Jack kicked me again, unexpectedly. "You were crying and shouting to marry me when you were a child." I knew he was joking, but I couldn't laugh at all, because I remembered another thing. If his mother and my mother were best friends, then our getting married wasn't an accident. It was the result of someone's elaborate plan. No wonder when I randomly asked a stranger to get married, we got the marriage certificate so smoothly. No wonder when my parents saw Jack, they weren't the least bit surprised. No wonder Jack called me Sonny, so familiar. So that's how it was. I had been calculated. But I thought I was so lucky to have met my true love. At that moment, panic, grievance, and sadness welled up in my heart. Countless emotions rushed into my heart all at once, making me instantly at a loss. Calmly, I took off the jade bracelet on my hand, put it on the table, and pushed it in front of Jack's mother, seemingly not expecting that I would have such a big reaction. Everyone stared at me blankly. "Aunt May, this bracelet is too precious. I need to think about it. I'm sorry." After saying that, I stood up immediately and left the restaurant quickly. I hailed a cab outside and sped away. I heard Jack calling me from behind, but my mind was in a mess at the moment. I needed some time. I didn't go back to the home that Jack and I shared, nor did I go back to my own house. Instead, I went straight to my parents' house. My parents' house is on the top floor, and there is a small attic on the topmost level. As soon as I got home, I rushed straight to the attic. There was something I wanted there. My parents didn't know what was wrong with me. Seeing my face smeared with tears, they were extremely worried and all thought that Jack had bullied me. My father, in his anger, was about to call Jack, but I stopped him. "Dad, don't call. I need some time to calm down and reconsider my relationship with him." My father and mother looked at each other in dismay. It seemed that they hadn't expected that we had really quarreled, and immediately calmed down. I rummaged in the attic for 2 hours before I found what I was looking for. Looking at the yellowed handwriting on it, I finally calmed down and smiled. If I'm not mistaken, Jack used to have another name. Frank. Not only was the name rustic, but he was also fat. Far from being as handsome and charming as he is now. In high school, there was a transferred student in our class. It was said that his parents were too busy with work to take care of him, so his grades were very poor. He also got into fights with others, so he transferred to our school and was arranged into our class. Since I was the class monitor, a teacher arranged for him to be my desk mate and asked me to help him with his study a lot. This person was Frank. Who would have thought that Frank either slept or played games in class every day? For me, as the class monitor, this was undoubtedly a provocation to my authority. So I always earnestly urged him to study hard, and even stayed up late to organize study notes for him. But with little effect. Once during a monthly exam, he did very poorly, not even reaching the average score. The head teacher was very angry and scolded him for dragging the class down, and even threatened to expel him. I couldn't bear it and pleaded for him to the head teacher. But instead of being grateful, he began to take pleasure in teasing me. He often put disgusting things like dead mice and cockroaches in my desk. At first, I was really angry. Later, I got used to it and just regarded him as childish and ignored him. Unexpectedly, he became more and more excessive and spread the rumor that he liked me everywhere. This rumor eventually reached my parents' ears. I remember very clearly that day. After school, he stuffed an envelope into my hand and asked me to read it when I got home. I did as he asked without thinking too much. As a result, it happened to be seen by my mother, who came into my bedroom to have a talk with me. She thus concluded that I was having a puppy love. Just because Frank wrote in the letter, "Sonny, I like you." My mother was very angry and immediately called the head teacher. So, the next day, Frank didn't come to school anymore. For many days after that, I never saw him again. Later, his departure became a thorn in my heart. I always thought that it was because I didn't explain for him back then that led to his expulsion. But now, not only has he reappeared, but he has also changed his name to Jack. He deliberately got close to me and married me. What on earth was he after? Thinking of the worst possibility, I felt very stuffy in my heart. During these days of getting along, I had indeed fallen in love. I stayed in the attic until night. The moonlight shone on me through the skylight. Only then did I gently move my hand and carefully fold the letter and put it in my pocket. I'm not the type who likes to run away. Since we've met again, I'll solve the problem. Even if he came to take revenge on me, I'll accept it. It was indeed my fault. When I came out of the attic, unexpectedly, I saw Jack. He and my father were sitting at the dining table drinking. Seeing me appear, his slightly drunken fox-like eyes looked at me, and suddenly they became moist, which made my heart ache and almost made me cry. When my father saw me come out, he put down his wine glass, pretended to be drunk, and let my mother help him back to the room to rest. When passing by me, he also casually admonished me, "Xiao Zhang Jack is the son-in-law I've approved. No matter what misunderstandings there are, let him finish what he wants to say before making a decision." I nodded numbly. He was really a typical father who forgot his daughter after having a son-in-law. Until my parents went back to their room, Jack still looked at me with red-rimmed eyes without making any further move. He looked just like someone who had been bullied by me. With a sigh, I stepped forward and took his hand. "You're drunk. Let me help you go and rest first." Jack was very cooperative. He followed me to the bedroom, just as I was about to turn on the light. Who would have thought that the moment he walked in, his body tilted and he trapped me in his arms. This was the first time we had been in such close contact. I felt a bit uncomfortable and struggled gently. As a result, Jack directly rested his head on my shoulder and said in a muffled voice, "Are you going to abandon me?" These words full of accusation made the grievances that I had been suppressing for several hours collapse instantly, and my tears began to fall one by one. In the darkness, neither of us could see each other's face clearly, but my sobbing sound was extremely clear in this quiet night. I felt Jack's whole body become stiff. He groped to hold my face and wiped my tears randomly. His tone was obviously flustered. "Sonny, don't scare me. What's wrong with you?" Crying at my age really made me feel a bit ashamed. I gradually stopped crying and simply raised my head and asked him recklessly, "Frank, why did you spread the rumor that you liked me back then?" I didn't ask about the love letter. Nor did I ask why he left without saying goodbye. Nor did I ask why he came back. I just wanted to hear him say that he liked me personally, just as I had kept him in my heart all these years. Jack touched my head and sighed. "Silly Sonny. I do like you. How can it be called a rumor?" From Jack's mouth, I heard another version. The day after he gave me the confession letter, his parents took him abroad to study. Because even though I had pleaded for him, a head teacher still contacted his parents and proposed the idea of expelling him. Jack's parents had no choice but to send him abroad to study. So they didn't tell Jack the truth and directly arranged for him to go abroad, and in order to be able to return to China as soon as possible after finishing his studies. Jack began to work very hard. But just when he was working hard to improve himself, and wanted to return to China perfectly one day and appear in front of me, he heard that I was on a blind date. Unable to sit still any longer, Jack hurriedly returned to China and colluded with my parents for that encounter. My mother had a good relationship with Aunt May. Naturally, she trusted Jack's character and immediately played a big drama with the whole family to force me into a corner. Unfortunately, I was the dog forced to jump over the wall. Sonny, I like you. And you? Jack's lips were pressed against the top of my head. His mellow wine fragrance filled the air between his breaths. I was dizzy from this fragrance and subconsciously murmured, I like you too. It was the sound of my heart pounding. Jack kissed me. All the entanglement and sadness didn't matter at this moment. The next day, I was woken up by someone. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Jack's affectionate fox-like eyes, looking at me with a smile. It could be seen that he was in a good mood. But I only felt sore all over and my eyes were dry. Compared with him, I was like a prisoner being tortured, while he was the torturer. Because I was angry, I couldn't help pinching his waist. But he caught my hand and held it high above my head. And his words were full of teasing, darling. If you want, we can do it when we get home. Mom and Dad are waiting. Get up quickly. After saying that, he kissed my face. Early in the morning, he made me blush and my heart pound. My face was still burning until I got dressed and went out. My parents just pretended not to see and beckoned us both to wash up and have breakfast quickly. After creating such a farce and making both sets of parents worry along with us, I felt very guilty. I took the initiative to propose at the dinner table that the two families should get together for a meal. Jack was naturally the one who was most pleased to hear this. He immediately called Jiang's mother and set a time. Mom and Dad, are you available on Saturday night? Sonny and I will pick you up then. Jack is meticulous in his work. Naturally, my parents had no objections and happily agreed. But I never expected that my mom and Jack's mom could surprise me. Saturday night was just a small gathering for the two families to discuss the wedding banquet. When we were about to leave, Jack mysteriously took out a white dress and put it on me. Looking at this dress with elaborate workmanship yet remaining elegant, I suddenly understood. Jack. So you like elegance. But who knew that Jack frowned, gave me a strange look, and touched my head and said, my silly Sonny. In this way, we bickered all the way to the hotel. As soon as we got out of the car and saw the scene in front of us, the corners of our mouths twitched wildly. There were two banners hanging in the hotel lobby. On the left it read, the iron tree that has been unblooming for 10,000 years finally blossoms. On the right it read, happily married and laughing. Horizontal scroll, Mr. Jack and Miss Sonny. Congratulations on your marriage. Jack and I looked at each other and both saw embarrassment in each other's eyes. We were so embarrassed that we could dig out 3 rooms and 1 living room. Suddenly, the door of the banquet hall opened. As far as we could see, it was full of people inside. My mom and Jack's mom, wearing red chams and messen, looking extremely wealthy and imposing, walked out hand in hand. One of them took one of my hands. Without giving me a chance to ask questions, they took me inside. They began to introduce me one by one to all the aunts and uncles. If it weren't for the look in my eyes towards Jack being too helpless, I guess he himself would be so shocked by the scene that he wouldn't be able to react in time to save me. And my mom even said it nicely, an ugly daughter-in-law always has to meet the relatives. Jack's mom agreed very much. This made me blush and my ears burn. Suddenly, the wedding march sounded without warning. My dad also didn't know where he popped out from. He led the stunned me onto the red carpet. In the presence of relatives and friends from both sides, he put my hand into Jack's hand and said, you brat. I'll leave my cabbage to you from now on. There was a burst of laughter below. I whispered, Dad. In such a sentimental atmosphere. You don't have to emphasize the cabbage thing. Maybe Jack is the cabbage. But I don't want to be a pig either. As soon as my dad stepped down, Jack conjured up a stack of notebooks and stuffed them into my hands like magic. I glanced at them with my peripheral vision. There were real estate certificates, passbooks, and even professional certificates. Sonny, this is all my possessions. From now on, I'll leave it all to you to take care of. Wow. So sweet. So sweet. The sounds from below came one after another. My eyes became slightly moistened. I was about to reach out to take them. Suddenly, a coolness touched my finger. A pigeon egg-sized diamond ring had already been put on my ring finger. Jack knelt on one knee, solemnly held the back of my hand and kissed it. I heard him speak piously, Sonny, will you be Mrs. Zhang forever and walk with me forever? Under the of relatives and friends. I suppressed the smile on the corner of my mouth and raised my hand, pretending to be disgusted that the diamond ring was not bright enough and deliberately teasing Jack. Oh, what if the diamond ring is not bright enough? My mother-in-law hurriedly handed over the family heirloom jade bracelet. Sonny, here's mine. My mom stomped her feet in anxiety beside me. Sonny, be serious. Finally, everything fell into place. Jack stood up and hugged me tightly in his arms regardless of so many people present. Then he whispered in my ear, Wife, you are the brightest warm sun in my heart. Jack's chapter when Ben was 3 years old. He went to play at his grandparents' house. Grandma took out Mom's childhood awards to inspire Ben. Baby, grow up to be as excellent as Mom. Ben blinked his big eyes and remembered that Dad always loved to pester Mom and ask if he was great. He imitated and said vaguely, Great. Grandma happily kissed the little cutie and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner for Ben. In the evening, after having dinner, Jack came to pick up the child and take him home. When he was about to wash clothes after putting the baby to sleep, he took out a piece of paper from Ben's pocket. Ben must have found it somewhere and at some time and stuffed it into his pocket and brought it home. Jack opened the crumpled ball of paper. The paper was slightly yellowed, but it could be seen that it was a letter paper. Because it was too long ago and the handwriting on it was blurry. But Jack could still recognize his own handwriting. Sonny, I like you. Jack chuckled and looked down. Only then did he see that there was another sentence written behind this handwritten note. The handwriting was graceful. Between the lines revealed the joy and shyness of the person who wrote it. It said, I like you too. Perhaps Jack had been in the laundry room for too long and Sonny came looking for him. Jack. What's wrong? The man's eyes were moist. The fox's eyes were full of ripples. Sonny's heart thumped and she called out anxiously. But she was hugged tightly by Jack. A deep and hoarse voice sounded from Sonny's neck. Sonny. It has always been you. The one I like. It turns out that from the very beginning. The one I like has always been me. Ben's chapter. Ben is 7 years old. One day, when his classmates mentioned the story of his dad and mom, he immediately became interested. When he got home from school, he excitedly pestered his mom and asked to hear it. Sonny had no choice but to think for a while and answer. Dad chased Mom first. Coincidentally, Jack, who had just returned home from work, heard this. He hurriedly explained to his son. Mom remembered it wrong. It was she who chased Dad first. Sonny didn't expect Jack to be so thick-skinned and lie in front of the child. She immediately pouted and glared at him. Then, Ben saw that Dad hugged Mom again and said with a smile, Wasn't it you who were attracted by my looks and stopped me on the street to get married? Showing affection again. Ben muttered and very sensibly went back to his room, to read and do homework.